Good afternoon, learners. Okay, welcome back to this IT lesson. So I hope everyone had a good weekend off. I see you guys are interacting quite a bit in the group chat over there. So please, again, just remember that if you do have to ask questions, let's do so in the group chat. And remember that you want to keep your questions, you want to keep your conversations as respectful as possible. Okay, so for those who are joining us for the first time, I'm Mr. Al Naika. We would be looking at how to continue with the race today. So let's just continue with that. So at the end of this lesson, what would you know? Displaying information stored in an array, ensuring that the display matches the sample output, application of an array in a question, and obviously arithmetic calculations and basic if statements. Okay, so again, I hope you guys are okay with that for today. Recap for those who are joining us for the first time and for the rest of the learners, just to recap what we covered last week, defining an array. One learner brilliantly explained it in the group chat over there. He stated that it's storing values so that we are able to use them later on. Okay, it is storing values so that we are able to use them later on. Okay, so the next one is, how is an array different from a variable? Uh, Obviously, an array is different from a variable because of the fact that an array can store multiple values and a variable can only store a single value. Okay, so those were some of the pointers that we had to talk about. Declaring an array, obviously we spoke about that quite in detail last week, and we obviously finished off last week at Thursday with populating values in an array. Okay, so I'm not going to spend time with obviously doing those things. I'm just going to get straight to the lesson. So output the stored value in an array. So that's what we're looking at today. We are looking at displaying information that is stored in an array. Okay, I will repeat that. The lesson today will cover displaying information that is stored in an array. So based on the question provided, obviously it's based on your exam question, outputting information can be broadly categorized as a vertical display and a horizontal display. Now those are the two broad categories of it. Okay, obviously you look at the sample output in your question paper and you would answer that accordingly. Okay, the previous videos, for those who are joining us, the previous videos are on YouTube. I did have a look at it. It is over there, so please view it. I think it went quite well. And again, it obviously continues from that on to today. So yeah. So what do we mean by the term vertical? Okay, vertical can be described as displaying information stored in an array, which is obviously one below each other. So what does vertical mean? Obviously we know what it means, but what does it mean in this context? It means displaying information one below each other. Basically, as you can see this image that I put over here, it's taking the contents of the first value in the array, placing it below the second, third, fourth. So all we are doing is displaying one below each other. So that's the first category, which is displaying an array vertically. What do we mean by displaying or outputting horizontally? So coding your solution to output the contents of the array to display information horizontally can be described as displaying your results on the same line. Okay, so vertical, one below each other. Horizontal is obviously on the same line or next to each other. So those are the two broad categories, and I promise you, if you know those two, if you know how to display either vertically or horizontally, you would be well equipped to answer any question that is thrown your way. Okay, so moving on, let's try an example. Okay, let's try an example. So it says, create a project called vertical. Okay, okay, Dial, I will slow down a bit. Okay, so learners, before we move on to the example, is everyone fine with where we stopped from last week with defining an array, with being able to describe an array, describing the purpose of it, and obviously declaring an array, looking at the different data types when declaring an array. And obviously, yes, thank you, Ben. It was easy work. So I'm hoping that we are following and we can move on to today's lesson. And please, learners, don't stress about or don't worry about uh, exam type questions. We would look at that when we get to the ending of this arrays question or arrays topic. Okay, so we would look at sufficient examples, and I will try to make sure that those examples are linked or it's linked up to a drive so you guys can access them. Okay, so I am continuing now. I'm hoping that's fine. So yeah, so let's try an example. I will take this example a little slow so that everyone can catch up. So the example says, create a project called vertical array to randomly generate 6 numbers in the range 10 to 110. Okay, display the array as per sample output. And obviously that is our sample output. And this is what I was trying to tell you, learners. This is what your solution, or this is what you must look for in the exam. Okay, this part of here. Can you see it has the message, your numbers displayed vertically are, and then below that it has 11, 21, 54, 12, 14, 101. Now, this is what I will tell you, and this is what you would have learned from last week, is that obviously we first need to understand the question before we try to code it. So everyone is happy with the fact that we are calling this vertical array. I'm not really worried about naming conventions or saving your work. Everyone's happy that we are randomly generating 6 numbers. Okay, what's the range for us? It's in the range 10 to 110. And is everyone happy with how this interface would look? Okay, so if you're following, if you want to take a picture of this screen, so that when we get to Delphi, you can follow with me instead of me keep sharing the PowerPoint with you. So please just take a picture of the screen, or if you remember it, that's good. Okay, so let's try to code this. Okay, so we're going to go into Delphi. Okay, and I had this interface already created just to try to save or try to obviously maximize our time spent. So the first thing we're going to do, learners, is we're going to declare our array. And please, if I'm going too fast again, please just tell me and I'll slow down a bit. I'm hoping that this is the correct pace. So we go to declare our array. So again, where do we declare it? We come to var. Can everyone see we come to var? And obviously I want to declare my array. Okay, I want to declare my array. So I'm going to look at this over here, and it said store it in an array called iArray numbers. Okay, I'm going to say it's called iArray numbers. So I'm going to say iArray numbers. Johan, this is iArray numbers. Okay, we need to indicate the data structure, which is array. We need to indicate the size. We said that there are 6 values in there, and we need to indicate the data type, which is obviously integer. Okay, so iArray numbers is the name that is assigned to my array. Obviously the data structure is array. Everyone is happy with 1 to 6, and everyone is obviously understanding of integer. Now, please, are there any questions on the declaration of an array? Okay, I'm assuming that that's a no. I'm assuming that you guys understand how that works. So again, the question said for us to randomly, now for those who didn't get a pick up this the slide, let's go back to the PowerPoint. And it said, obviously, create an array called vertically to randomly generate 6 numbers. Okay, DL, okay, we'll get there now, DL. So it's to generate 6 numbers in the range 10 to 110. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back to Delphi. Okay, we're going to go back to Delphi. So DL asked me to repeat this. Obviously, DL, we need to store values in this array. We assigned or we created this variable called, or this array called iArray numbers by indicating arrays as data structure and by indicating the size and the data type. I'm assuming DL, it'll be beneficial for you to view the previous lessons, which indicates or which would be very useful to introduce arrays to you. Okay, so I'm going to go to my uh, randomly generate numbers button, and let's go ahead and randomly generate these numbers. Now learners, before we go ahead and code this, remember last week we said that we want to store values at different positions in the array. What does that bring? What does it bring to mind? You want to obviously store a value at position 1. You want to store a value at position 2. You want to store a value at position 3, 4, 5, 6. I think you get the idea. Because you want to store values at those various positions, you would require a loop. A loop would obviously automate the process instead of you sitting as a programmer and saying, let me go and place a value at position 1. Let me go and place a value at position 2. By having a for loop, it does the repetition for us, which is quite nice, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a for loop. I'm going to call it I integer. Now, this is not necessary. If you go to begin and you type the word for, the I gets declared for you, okay? So everyone knows the purpose of the for loop. I'm looking at my comments over here, and I'm hoping that everyone knows the purpose of the for loop. Is everyone happy with the fact that it is going from 1 to 6? Okay? It is going from 1 to 6 because there are 6 values to store. I'm putting comments over there so you can just note this as we go along. Okay, so we ran a for I is equal to 1 to 6. The next question that you need to ask yourself is, what would I like to repeat 6 times? You would agree with me that we need to obviously store 6 values. Okay, so I'm going to store these values. And where am I going to store these values? I am going to store these values in my array called iArray, what did I call it? iArray numbers. Okay, so sometimes it picks up, sometimes it doesn't, but oh, there we go. Okay, now remember learners, an array is different from a variable, and because it is different, it needs to be shown differently. And how do we show it differently? By using square brackets. Okay, what is the purpose of the square brackets? The purpose of the square brackets is to allocate a position to store the value in the array. I'll repeat that. The purpose of the square bracket is to allocate a position to store the value in the array. For instance, this is what it means. It says, we have this array called iArray numbers. What would you like to store at position 1? What would you like to store at position 2? So by using the for loop, we would automate this process. And how would we do that? We would obviously send in I. Can everyone see where I came from? I came from the for loop. So again, it's not a variable, it is an array. Because it is an array, it needs to be used differently. And whenever you need to use an array, you would always use it with those square brackets. When you get to grade 12, there's a thing called two-dimensional arrays, which uses 2 sets of square brackets. But for now, we will just focus on one-dimensional arrays. So everyone's happy so far? Now, the question stated that you should randomly generate 6 values, in the range 10 to 110. Okay, let's go back so everyone can follow that. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So randomly generate 6 numbers in the range 10 to 110. Okay, so everyone's happy with that part. Let's go back to Delphi and say, and remember, if you were with me last week, I like to use random range. Okay, and if you were listening to last week, you would say that we indicate the starting value. So they said, so Brownman Swart said, is it possible to do it without an array? Yes, Brownman, it is very possible to do it without an array. Obviously, we're working with small values over here, but and I think Brown asked an important question. Okay, but Brown, what happens in the exam is they try to make you, or they force you to use an array by indicating a large value. For instance, randomly generate 100 values. Now, when you have that case over there, it's not feasible for you to use individual variables. So I'm hoping I answered your question, Brownman. Yes, it is possible to do it without an array, but the idea is to show you how to use arrays, because they will test you with large values. Okay, so again, we're getting to the question. It said we want to store 6 numbers in the range 10 to 110. Now remember, the stopping value would be one higher than the value that was specified. So it said stop at 110, so my random range will go to 111. Again, the question said stop at 110, so my value, or my random range will go to 111. I'm hoping everyone understands that. And as you can see in your screen, on your screen rather, there's a error, or there's something wrong with random range. Now, again, there's nothing new. We need to go to uses, and we need to use the math class. Okay, now by using the math class, we obviously have access to use the random range. Did you see that the error is gone? Okay, so everyone's happy with the first part of the question. Did we cover what the question said though? Let's see. Okay, so let's go back. So it said create a project called vertical. Yes, we did that. To randomly generate 6 numbers. Yes, we did that. In the range 10 to 110. Yes, everyone's happy. We covered that aspect of that question. Now, here's the part that we're talking about today. The part today is displaying the array vertically, okay? Displaying the values in the array vertically. Obviously, we want to display it one below each other. Now, learners, before we get to the code, remember, I'm sure your teacher told you this, but when you display something, obviously you need to ask yourself, okay, so let's go out of it here. Let's go back to display. Okay, can you see I got the caption wrong over here? So I want to change this to display vertically. Okay, I was just trying to put this together earlier on. I did miss. Okay, display vertically. Okay, and again, what is vertically? Vertically is to display one below each other. Okay, so did you see that button over there has the code in it? Now, please, this is another thing that we need to inform learners, that you have, please put the code in the buttons that are required, because usually you'll get learners who will do everything in this one button over here. Learners, please refrain from that and look at what the question in the paper is stating, okay? I'm going to use the display vertical button to display the contents of my array. Okay, I'm not going to do it under this part of the year. So I hope that is clear. Now, getting back to what I was saying before I was interrupted by that display. So as I said, in grade 10, you learned about the rich edit component, and you learned that the method to display is obviously the name of the component dot lines dot add. I'm sure you would agree with me. To display using a rich edit, it's dot lines dot add. You would also agree with me that by using by executing that line many times, we're obviously able to display the contents on a new line. Okay, let me repeat what I just said. By repeating that line, you know, the line read output dot lines dot add, by using it multiple times, or by using it below each other repeatedly, we're obviously able to create a new line for ourselves. I'm hoping that you understood that. We'll look at it now. Okay, so let's get back to our display, and you need to ask yourself, what am I doing? You'll say, I need to display the contents of the array vertically. Okay, you need to display the contents. Notice what I'm doing. I'm trying to obviously build up that confidence for me to be able to answer this question. So you say, I need the contents from the array. Because I need the contents from the array, I need to have a for loop, because the for loop would obviously automate the process. So I'll say for I is equal to 1 to 6, do, oh, sorry. Okay. Now, how simple is this? We want to display the contents of the array. I'll say read output. And remember, what is the purpose of the for loop? The purpose of the for loop is to say how many or what would you like to repeat. Now I would like to repeat the display 6 times. So I'm going to say read output dot lines dot add. Everyone's happy with that? And I'm going to say, what would I like to display? I would like to display the contents of the array. So I array numbers. And remember, it's an array, so it has to be used with square brackets. Okay, now let's look at that. So we said for I is equal to 1 to 6, do red output, red lines to display I array numbers. Now the first thing someone will tell me is what's wrong over here. Remember, learners, when something is displayed, it needs to be sent out as a string. When something is displayed, I'm going to put a comment over here so that everyone can understand. When we display or output, it needs to be in a string format. Okay, which means what? Because learners sometimes get so caught on the fact that they are working with arrays that they forget the basics, which means that we need to say int to string. Okay, everyone's happy with that part. Okay, now let me run this program, and I want to share with you that screen. Okay, just give me a sec. I just want to share screen. Okay, so let's generate the numbers and let's display vertically. Okay, so that's not going to work well. So, okay. Let's go back to Delphi. I just want to run this program one more time. Okay, I just want to run this program one more time. Okay, I'm going to share this with you learners. Okay, now everyone should see the program or the file being run. So I'm going to click randomly generate numbers. Happy with that? Nothing would happen. Obviously, when I clicked that button, it will say, take these 6 values and allocate it to different positions in the array. I'm hoping you guys can actually see arrays like the way I'm seeing it without even doing it, without even looking at the code. So when we click display vertically, remember when we click this button, it should come one below each other. Now notice what happened. Okay, notice what happened. Okay, so we got 35, 106, 26. Obviously, it'll be different depending on what obviously it'll change depending because it's random values. Now, learners, this is what I wanted to show you. The sample output had this in play, had this for us to do. And this is where learners are losing marks. As I said, we marked the grade 12 papers, and this is some of the things that learners are not doing correctly. Okay, this is the PowerPoint. Notice the sample output. It says your numbers displayed vertically are. Okay, you need to put that message over there. They didn't put it because they felt like putting it. They want you to they want to see if you can do that. So your numbers displayed vertically are. So you need to put that, and then below that you obviously want to go ahead and indicate the numbers. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the Delphi. Okay, I'm going to stop my program and I'm going to do that. Now notice where, yes, Calvin, the I basically represents the 6 values because I will increment automatically. Oh, sorry, Caleb, it will increment automatically. So we're going to go and we're going to display. Learners, take note. Okay, take note where the message is being displayed. Notice I am not putting the message within the loop. Why? Because if I put it in the loop, it's going to repeat it 6 times. And do we want for it to say your numbers generated are whatever? No, you want to display it once because that's what the sample output said. So red display dot lines dot add, and we're going to put our message. Okay, we're going to say your numbers randomly, I'm hoping that's a correct message, randomly generated. Okay, learners, please I'm just going to give you a moment to just look at this code, and if there's any questions, please, okay, I'm seeing what I must start here, semicolon. Okay, and remember, if you don't know this by now, but the purpose of the semicolon is your way of communicating with the program and saying, okay, stop what you are doing on that line and move on to the next line. Because remember, we can type on this line and it will, in fact, it will never stop. So our way of communicating with Delphi is using the semicolon to say, stop what you are executing and move on to the next line. So again, while learners are looking at this, let's just go through this one more time. Take note of the message, take note of the for loop. Okay, what would you like to repeat 6 times? Obviously, as Caleb Calvin he asked me this privately, but it's representing 6 values. So I'm gonna put this over here. I will, okay, so the I for the for loop will change automatically. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. And as I changes automatically, obviously the position is going to change. So we're going to take the first value and put it at position 1, position 2, etc. So let's go back. Let's just do this the final time. Okay, I'm going to run this program the last time, and we're going to move on to the next code for today. Okay, so we get there. Let me share the screen with you. And I know you guys are going to complain about the red display, so let me remove that before it even comes up. Randomly generate numbers and display vertically. Okay, now I know this part of here is obviously your concern, but don't stress about that. If it did come out in the exam, the examiner just wants to see if you are able to display a message and if you can do it in the correct place. Okay, so learners, I hope that went quite well. That was displaying vertically. I hope you guys learned something. And even if you did know it as well, this is just a time for you to recap. Because remember, in grade 12, everything what you learn in grade 10, 11, and 12 gets examined in the final exam in grade 12. So please, there's nothing that goes to waste. So let's go on back to our slide. And by looking at my chat, I see that there's no questions. So I'm going to move on to the slide. So everyone's happy with displaying vertically. Okay, yes, Caleb. Okay, so by the time Caleb sends his question over there, would you mind showing us the code one more time? Okay, so let's just do that. Let's just make sure that everyone is following. So I'm going to show you the code one more time. Okay, and I like to use comments in my code so that it makes it more understandable. Okay, so I'm just going to allow that for a minute just for you to understand, just for you to take in whatever you need to, and then we can move on. Okay, remember learners, by the time everyone is just taking a look at that, lessons will continue the whole week from at 2 o'clock for grade 11 IT. So please do join. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so what did we learn from the above? The need for a for loop. Okay, please pay attention to the sample output. If there's anything that you learned today, is paying attention to the sample output. Okay, now let's try this example. Okay, I hope everyone's ready for this example. And again, if you'd like to take a picture of this or screenshot it, whatever, but let's just make sure that we have some kind of way of looking at this question while we are coding. Okay, so this question said, create a project called horizontal to do the following. Okay, learners, I'm sure you learned in grade 10. I'm not even going to talk to you about how to save a project. So I'm just going to get straight into the code. Okay, so it said, allow the user to input 8 numbers using a dialog box. Code your output to match the layout of the sample output. So before we go over there, this is what I want you to always do, because I even see this with my learners as well. Learners want to immediately start coding. Guys, you don't need to do that. You first need to understand the question, view the sample output, read the question again, and then try to code it. You should be able to visualize the code before even going into Delphi. So let's see what's required of us. The question said, allow the user to input 8 numbers. Would you agree with me that the size of this array is going to be 8? Okay, we'll obviously use our discretion now because they didn't provide us with a name for the array. So I'm just going to use array numbers again. Okay, but remember, you can call it whatever you want. And since they did not give me since they did not ask me to assign a value to the array, or ask me to call it a specific name, I'm just going to call the array let's call it something different. Let's call it array numbers, okay? And at the bottom says code your output. Now, this is what I want you to see. Notice it says, thank you for inputting the numbers. Now, I know you can immediately think where this message goes, okay? Your numbers in horizontal order is, okay? So yeah, so that's over there. And then obviously we want the numbers 12, 15. But this is what I want you to see. This is what we mean display horizontally. 12, it's next to each other. Can you see the next to 12 is 15. Next to 15 is 13, 18. So that's what it means horizontally. Vertically is one below each other. Horizontally is in line, in the same line or next to each other. So now that we got an idea of this, let's go to Delphi. Okay, let's stop this. Let me open up that. Hopefully it's there, horizontal. Okay. Okay, so learners, you can see this over here. We have this interface. There's nothing fancy. Immediately, and this is what I will tell my learners as well, guys, is that if you're a bit you're not very confident with programming, all you need to do is start with the basics. Start with doing the basics, and obviously that will build up that momentum for you to get to the harder parts of the question. So let's say let me call this array, and I'm going to show you that you can call it whatever you want. Take note of where the array is declared. I'm going to call mine array num. Okay. And we said array is the data structure. How many values are we storing? You would agree with me that we are storing 8 values. And the data type is of integer. Now, again, if you were with me last week, you would realize that this could be string, this could be real, this could be whatever you want it to be, okay? So that's what the data type is. Okay, so that's where the array was declared. Now let's go and as you can see over here, I need to change this to input numbers. Okay, as I said, I was just doing this earlier on. So remember, unlike the previous question, this question is not randomly generating values. This question is requesting the user to input values using a dialog box. And what is a dialog box? A dialog box is an input box. Okay, so everyone's happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead. Did you see where I clicked? And I'm going to obviously say I need to store values in the array. So what do I need? Because I'm storing values in the array, I will need a for loop. So I'm going to do that here, integer, and yeah, so I'm going to say begin for I is equal to 1 to 8. Everyone's happy with that, 1 to 8, because I need to store 8 values, and the for loop will automate that process for me. Where would I like to store the values? I want to store the values in array numbers, okay? And if you're storing the values in array numbers, you say, okay, it's an array, it is different from a variable, I need to use square brackets. And what goes in the middle? The position. Okay, so that's perfect. Now, unlike the previous example, this is requesting the user to input values using a dialog box. So remember, everything comes in as a string and it goes out as a string. Notice what I'm saying, because I still today I get learners in grade 11 saying, how do I know when to put int to string and string to int? It comes in as a string, learners, so you put string. It needs to be converted to an integer, okay? String to int. What do we need? We need an input box. Okay, so Hayden says, please repeat where we are coding this. Is it in the disk? No, Hayden, it is. I'm hoping I'm doing it in the right place. It is in the input numbers, Hayden. It is in the input numbers button, okay? So we're going to say string to int input box, okay? Now, what would you like the title of your, if I hope you guys understand what's the code that goes in an input box. The first part surrounded by these quotes are, what is the title of your input, what is the title of your dialog box? And I'm going to say my title is number input, okay? Remember the first value in these quotations are the title for the input box. The next value is the request or the instruction, what would you like us to do? So you say, please enter a number. For those learners who didn't know what the input box meant, I will tell this to you one more time. If you didn't know what the input box meant, I'll tell this to you one more time. The number is, the first part is obviously the title for the input box, okay? Which is obviously like, can you see where I'm pointing now? That's the title. And the next thing is the instruction. So that's the please enter a number. Okay, so we go ahead and we will say that part over there. Okay, everyone's happy with the input box. Okay, and I must start a bracket. Okay, learners, so did you see how simple that was? We allocated a value, everything's perfect. String to int, for anyone who needs to look at the input box code, let me just move this across here. Okay, take a look at the input box code. Take a look at the input box code. And please, if there's any questions, note that now. Okay, so array num, string to input box, number input, please enter a number. Okay, learners, so now that that is done, our input is done. I'm going to go to my question and let's see whether I'm following the question, okay? The question said randomly generate, did I do that? Yes, I randomly generate, no, sorry, not randomly, sorry, learners. The question was for you to, and I see this mistake over here. Please remember, we are not randomly generating values. I do apologize about this. We are allowing the user to input 8 numbers using a dialog box. So again, I wanted to, I mean, we could have done randomly generating, but it's not going to allow you to expand your knowledge of the section. So that is why I opted to use a dialog box. Okay, so please just take note of that if you are watching the video, that we are inputting 8 numbers. That's what the question is. That's what we're doing. Okay, so we did that over there, and then finally we want to come to the display. Okay, and what you would notice in the display, learners, is obviously we want to focus on the messages and then the output. Okay, so let's go back to Delphi. Let's go into my display, and you need to ask yourself, okay, what would I like to display? I need to display the contents of the array. And I'm just looking at the comments over there, and you guys are busy sharing your Instagram accounts. Okay, anyways, so we want to display the contents in the array. So yeah, I know, Keegan. So Hayden says, when the program runs, will you have to fill out 8 input boxes? Yes, Hayden, we'll try to do it as quickly as possible, but yes, that's what will happen. We would have to fill in values, we'll have to fill in values for the 8 input boxes will pop up for us to fill in those values. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to display my message first. I'm going to go here and display message. Okay, and I'm going to say read output. Okay, what did I call it? Read display dot lines dot add, and the message is what? Let me just have a look at my what we are displaying. So we are saying thank you for inputting numbers. Okay, thank you for inputting numbers. Okay, thank you for inputting numbers. That's our first message. And notice the next line, it wants us to put another message. It says read display dot lines dot add. Okay, and he wants us to say your numbers. I will answer your question now, Keegan. Just bear with me. I have a limited time here. Your numbers in horizontal order is. Okay, learners, I hope you noticed that over there. I'm just going to show you again one more time so we can follow together. The question said that we should display the message, thank you for inputting numbers, and your numbers in horizontal order is. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this now before we finish off for today. Now, this is what I need to tell you. The string or the displaying horizontally is a bit more complicated. Okay, it involves a bit of string and character handling, and I'm hoping that I can get through it in the next 8 minutes. But if we don't, we'll obviously just touch up on it tomorrow again, but I'm hoping that we can be done. So remember, unlike the vertical display, which was so simple, all we had to do was say read output.lines.add, and we displayed it. With the horizontal display, we need to join the numbers together. Notice emphasis is on the word on the word join, okay? We need to join these numbers together. And how would we join these numbers together? Guys learned about string and character handling, where you need to concatenate these numbers, okay? So we're going to do a bit of that over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a string variable. And I'm going to call the string variable sjoin, okay? String. And again, learners, if there's a bit of confusion, just bear with me. Obviously, we will try to address that now. So let's just note that. So I need the numbers from the array. So I'm going to use a for loop. Okay, 8 times. Everyone's happy with that. Okay, and notice this, learners. I'm saying sjoin is equal to sjoin plus the values in my array, which was obviously array. Oh, there we go. Int to string. Why? Because we need everything to be in the same data type. Int to string array numbers. And learners, if you're having a bit of difficulty understanding this part of the year, just bear with me. We would obviously missing what's array num. So we'd look at it again in much detail tomorrow if we have to. Okay, so into string sjoin is equal to sjoin plus into string array numbers. Okay, now let me go back here and show you something. Okay, I want my numbers to be displayed like this. But can you notice that there's a space in between it? There's a space between 12 and 15. There's a space between 15 and 13. There's a space between 13 and 18. I think you get the idea. So I need to cater for that. I need to make sure that there's a space in my code as well. So I'm going to go and say plus hash 9. Okay, so that will create the space for me. Remember, one last time I'm going to do this. I think I have about a few minutes to go. Yes, this video will be on YouTube. One last time, to make sure that everyone understands what we mean by horizontal. Horizontal means that you want to display everything in one line or next to each other. We need to create code that will force this. So we do some kind of string and character handling. That is the purpose of the sjoin, okay? We want to join together. Now, probably someone's thinking, oh, I know you won't think, I know you guys are very smart, you're not thinking that, but just for those who may be thinking, why couldn't we have it as I join? Because if you had it as I join, learners, you will add those numbers up, and that's not what we want to do. We want to join the numbers, okay? So really important, we want to join the numbers, so that is why I made it a string. Pay close attention to the into string, because that's where learners mess up as well, okay? Yes, Jade, we should have allocated it to a space, okay? So yes, so we're going to just finish off of the sjoin is equal to sjoin plus into string hash 9. Now we're going to come out of the loop. Okay, we're going to come out of the loop and we're going to display it. And I'm going to say sjoin. Okay, so let's try running this and let's see if it works out the way we want it to work out. Okay, I'm going to share that thing with you so we can do it together. So let's go to new share. Okay, let's get to our form. Input numbers as one of the learners asked. Would we have to input it 8 times? Yes, we're going to try to do as quickly as possible. 12, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 87. Okay, so we obviously inputted our numbers. Okay, so learners, you could have used a space you could actually used a empty quotation marks in place of a hash 9. It works perfectly, but I just prefer using the hash 9. So yes, the space is fine as well. So I'm going to display horizontally. Learners, look at that, how nice that came out beside this part of the year. But did you see this? 8, 12, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 87. Did you see the message got displayed once? And did you see that the numbers in horizontal? Now, Jade asks, and this is what I'll try to show you, Jade, that it wasn't necessary for you to obviously have that over there, but it doesn't stop you from including it as well. Okay, so I hope that that is clear. So Jade said that we should have initially set it to a space. Okay, so again, it works perfectly fine without it. Okay, welcome, Jade. So learners, that's it for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed this lesson. I enjoyed doing it with you guys. So please, tomorrow again, 2 o'clock, please just to get back to the PowerPoint. And remember, we will cover up on tomorrow again. So watch the video, and if there are issues that you're not sure of, or if there are things that you're unsure of, please just remember it tomorrow when we start the lesson. And I will try to have address questions at the start of the lesson so that we can obviously make sure that learners are understanding as we move forward. Okay, so again, take note of the string and character handling that we